So, after the split, the northern tribes go off with Jeroboam, who creates a capital for himself called Shechem. He doesn't want the people to go to Jerusalem to make their sacrifices, because that would mean acknowledging that Judah still had power over them. So he sets up 2 golden calves, one in Bethel and one in Dan. The choice of a calf was highly strategic, as it served those who clung to the worship of Baal, who was often portrayed as a bull. But, as this dude John Drain notes, it was also possible to think that these bulls as thrones for the invisible God of the covenant Yahweh, just as the Ark of the Covenant also represented God's invisible presence in the temple at Jerusalem. However, what appeared to be a genius plan in human terms was complete utter foolishness in God's eyes, and so Jeroboam is denounced by a prophet from Judah, who causes Jeroboam's hand to become withered, but then he heals it again later. This act of rebellion sets the trend for Israel, as all of the subsequent kings turn out to be bad, and walking in the ways of Jeroboam become the ultimate denouncement against them.
Jeroboam reigns for 22 years, then he dies and his son Nadab succeeds him. Nadab reigns for 2 years, then is killed by a usurper called Baasha. Baasha reigns for 24 years and fights against Judah. He dies, and his son Elah takes over the throne. Elah reigns for 2 years before he's killed by another usurper called Zimri, who cunningly attacks Elah whilst he's drunk. Zimri reigns for the grand total of 7 days before he's attacked by the Israelite army and so kills himself by setting to his palace. The Israelite army make their commander Omri king. Omri reigns for 12 years and archaeologically is recorded as being one of the greatest kings Israel had in terms of military might and prosperity. The Bible, however, simply dismisses Omri as simply another king who disobeyed the Lord and mentions the fact that he moved the capital city to Samaria.
So after Omri comes Ahab. He reigns for 22 years, and the biblical account of him, which is found at the end of 1 Kings 16, says this: Ahab, son of Omri, did evil in the sight of the Lord, more than all who were before him. And, as if it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, he took as his wife Jezebel, daughter of King Ethbaal of the Syrians, and went and served Baal, and worshipped him. He erected an altar for Baal in the house of Baal, which he built in Samaria. Ahab also made a sacred pole. Ahab did more to provoke the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, than had all the kings of Israel who were before him. There's a lot that you could say about Ahab, and Kings kind of devotes quite a lot of space to him, and mainly because his nemesis was Elijah. Out of the stories to note, perhaps the most important is the drought that Elijah predicts. It's in this part that Elijah spends quite a while sitting by a river, being fed by ravens who bring him scraps of food. It's also in this section that he persuades a woman to use her last bit of flour and oil in making him some food. And then this flour and oil just kind of carries on until the drought ends. The drought does finally end when Elijah challenges the prophets of Baal to a fire-off. In other words, they both have to build an altar, and whoever's god manages to set the altar on fire is the winner. Of course, the God of Israel wins, despite the fact that Elijah douses the altar with water beforehand. And after God proves his power in this way, Elijah stirs up the people to destroy all of these priests of Baal. At this point, Jezebel is then really mad and wants to kill Elijah, so he runs away and goes to Mount Horeb, where he meets God, and God just says, "What are you doing here?" So then after Elijah has a bit of a rant to God, God then sends him back and tells him to anoint Jehu to go and replace Ahab as the king, and to anoint Elisha, who will turn out to be Elijah's successor. God's grace is demonstrated, however, through the story of Ahab and Elijah. Because despite Ahab's great sin, which includes the whole story of Naboth's vineyard, where he allows Jezebel to basically orchestrate the death of Naboth so that Ahab can have this vineyard. Anyway, despite all of these sins and the evil that he does, God still uses Ahab to deliver Israel when the Assyrians come against them. However, on another occasion, when Judah and Israel go up to fight against the Assyrians, Ahab is killed, and his son Ahaziah succeeds him.
Ahab's son Ahaziah reigns for 2 years before falling off a balcony. Whilst lying injured, he decides to send some servants to go inquire to some foreign gods as to whether he will live or not. Elijah intercepts them and tells them to tell Ahaziah that he will die and that he should have gone and consulted God instead of foreign gods. Ahaziah sends 3 lots of 50 men to go and get Elijah. The first 2, however, are consumed with fire, and the third lot persuade Elijah to go back with them, whereupon he just gives Ahaziah exactly the same message, which he dies, of course, because Elijah said he would. Then Elijah is taken up to heaven, and Elisha... Have I been mixing up Elijah and Elisha?
No.
I think I have.
No, you haven't.
Oh, well, it's too late now.
Succeeds him.
Elijah is taken up to heaven, and Elisha succeeds him, whereupon he parts the Jordan and fixes some bad water, and then calls curses down on some boys who are calling him Baldy, and some bears come and attack them.
Ahab's son, Jehoram, who is also called Joram, not Ahab's son-in-law, who confusingly has the same name, noted, reigns for 12 years and does evil, but not as badly as his mum or dad.
There is then the account of a number of Elisha's miracles, which, similar to Jesus, show God's care for ordinary people and their day-to-day needs. Within these miracles, there is the amazing story of Naaman, the commander of an Aram army, or Syrian army as confusingly it is also known. In this story, Naaman gets leprosy and is urged by an Israelite girl he has enslaved to go and see the Samaritan prophet, which is Elisha. Naaman does this, and he is cured, whereupon he says to Elisha in 2 Kings chapter 5, "Behold, I know that there is no God in all the earth but Israel, so accept now a present from your servant." But Elisha says, "As the Lord lives, before whom I stand, I will receive no such gift." Naaman, who urges Elisha to take it, but he refuses. Then Naaman says, "If not, please let there be given to your servant 2 mules loaded with earth, and from now on your servant will not offer any burnt offerings or sacrifices to any god but the Lord. But may the Lord pardon your servant when he goes with his master into the house of Rimmon to worship, and his master has to lean on his arm, and your servant needs to go down with him. Please let the Lord pardon your servant, for I am not worshipping the God, for I am worshipping your God only, which is God." And Elisha says with him, "Go in peace." Elisha then does a number of miracles to ensure the release of the Israelites out of the hands of the Arameans, or Syrians as they are also known. On one occasion, some Syrians try to kill Elisha, but God makes them blind, and so Elisha leads them into the middle of Samaria. The king of Israel asks Elisha whether or not he should kill them. Elisha says not to, but to give them food instead.